Hi guys, Scapegoat Stephen back again with a look through of Kings, Nations and Gods, which is the first, not the first expansion for our Kingdoms RPG, but one of the big expansions. There you go, so I think it is again, it's close on 400 pages of fluff, basically. There is a lot of other stuff in there as well. So we go, inside cover again. The credits, table of contents. So you've got Cygnar, Khador, Divided Llael, Ord and the Protectorate. 5 of the major kingdoms. We're missing things like Ios, Rull, Crix. I believe they will be coming in a future expansion, possibly also including Scorn. But we'll see how that goes. Obviously, for anyone who's not in the know, I think it was in March next year, we're expecting Iron Kingdoms Unleashed, which is the Hordes version of this book. So it may be that we get a similar book to this that discusses the various Hordes factions, like Scorn, like Thornfall, like Blindwater, and all this sort of thing. But as you can see, it's a lot of stuff in here. So we've got a nice map, again, talking about the powers of the Iron Kingdoms. It's actually nicely colour coded as well to show you just how big Khador is. So straight into Cygnar, some amazing artwork in this book. Talks about the demographics, king, what its government is, its capital with ethnic groups, language, climate, terrain, natural resources. So it's quite a nice thing. Here we go, we've got Cygnar, including part of Cygnar that is now currently, I wouldn't say owned by Khador, but currently contested by Khador. So it starts though way back in the Thousand Cities era and the Orgoth conquest, and then the founding of Cygnar, the Colossal Wars against the Trollkin, and then gets into things like the Cygnaran Civil War, the Thornwood War, Railthorn, Leto, and his coup against his brother, and the current wars. So we're into things like government and military. It discusses like the knightly orders, crime and punishment, Cygnaran law, relationships with the other kingdoms, which does include Rull, Scorn, United Creels of the Trollkin. And it talks about the Cygnaran military. It's got a nice layout of their military there. It talks about their sort of major armies, including the branches of the military, Cygnaran military ranks, and then go into the arcane ranks, and then society and culture. Talks about sort of the ethnic populations of Cygnar, religions in Cygnar, and then obviously what their own specific branches of the religion do. Duchies of Cygnar. Yeah, there's just quite a lot of this is background fluff, which again at some point I will go through and do probably an info dump style video on, just talking about the various countries. But I imagine those will be reasonably heavy videos, so that'll be something I'll have to spend a long time on. Talks about the various provinces within the duchies. I think we're still on the duchies at this point. Yep, so as you can see, there's a lot of fluff in here. And then we're into islands, and then organisations like the Fraternal Order of Wizardry, the Mercurian League, Steam and Ironworkers Union, and there we go, that's up to page 87 before we actually get into any sort of character related stuff, which I actually quite like. As I said, there's a nice chunk of just pure background material in there that you can draw on for either inspiration for the war game, for the roleplay game, or just a nice bit of reading. Into the player section, we've got Cygnaran specific careers. So instead of just Gun Mage, you've got Arcane Tempest Gun Mage, Cygnaran Warcaster with a modified spell list, Illuminated Arcanist, a Storm Lance, a Trencher Commando, and then we've got new careers, the Stormsmith, and then new abilities that and new skills and new spells that slide in with those careers, as well as specific adventuring companies for Cygnar and Cygnaran gear. Then we get into specifically Cygnar Steamjacks. So we've got the Charger chassis light warjacks, and then we're into the Hunter chassis light warjack and their type. Then we're into the Centurion chassis heavy warjack and the Ironclad chassis heavy warjack. So this is a lot of stuff in there. And then specifically Cygnar gear and upgrades. Then into the Khador. That is a nice bit of artwork. What I assume is Chaos in an underboss, somewhat threatening someone menacingly. So basically we're on to page 112 before we get into the Khador section. Again, very much like the others, nice map. Talks about prior to the Orgoth invasion, then the founding of Khador, military, the current Empress, the role of Kayazi and the Church, the role of the military high command, other racial goings on, the army splits, society and culture, religion, all sorts. Absolutely loads again of pure background, which is, again, it's great to see this level of detail gone into all of the different kingdoms. I can imagine there's also, for a lot of other gaming systems, there's probably a similar amount of background, but I don't know how released to the public it is. So then we've got into the player section up here. So we've got Khadoran characters, Grey Lords, which are alternate Arcanists. We've got Khadoran Warcasters, Iron Fang Ulans, Manowar Drakons, new careers in the Assault Commando, the Doom Reaver, Horseman, and a Man of War. Various new abilities, new adventuring companies, and Khadoran gear, including the Fellblade. Various weapons, and then we're into the Khadoran Labourjacks and the actual Warjacks. Then nice artwork throughout, as you can see. Then we're into Divided Llael, which obviously is over half owned by the Khadorans at the moment. Talks about it when it was its own country, and then brings it all the way up to date. Discusses a lot about what led to the some nice artwork there. What led to the invasion. Talks a lot about the society beforehand and the society after the. It's a nice bit of artwork of Ashlyn there. Society after the Khadorans have over half invaded the Kingdom of Llael. Discusses the territory also held by the Menites in the north, who are, supposedly there to help the Llaelese, although convert them might be a bit more apt. So we're into the Llaelese character section. So you can get Gun Mage with the Amethyst Rose. Dying to see these in the war game, but we'll have to hold ourselves on that one at the moment. Including they have an alternate spell list. Llaelese Warcaster, those are the only two specifically Llaelese classes. New abilities for garroting, new spells, adventuring companies, weapons which are a lot more sneaky, a lot more murdery than just outright fighting abilities, new alchemy stuff, bombs. The only Llaelese Steamjack, the Vanguard, and then we're into Ord. Ord, quite a small country when you compare it to Cygnar over here and Khador up the north. Talks a lot about, again, the founding of Ord, how the layout of Ord is. It's a very strange country. It obviously has to balance that borderline of being right next to Khador and Cygnar, but obviously they have a very strong navy. A lot of the mercenaries from the tabletop war game are Ordic in nature, just because they're a very neutral, in inverted commas, country. They don't like to get involved. They'll try and manipulate other people to do stuff for them if necessary, if they can. So yeah, there you go. All this background again about Ord. Ord being one of those countries that there isn't so. Before this book, I don't imagine there was as much stuff publicly available about them, because they were this strange, not strange country, but the country that hasn't got its own standing army, so it doesn't feature heavily in the war game. Into player sections, so Ordic specific careers, Crucible Guard, Marine, a Maritime Order of the Trident Arcanist, which is an Arcanist, an Ordic Warcaster, and then the Artillerist class, some new abilities, new military skill, some new spells, adventuring companies, naval Warcaster armour, so should you feel the desire to do some sort of navy-based game. And then we go into Ordic Steamjacks, including Warjacks, including the Toro chassis Warjack. And then we're into the Protectorate of Menoth. Again, as with the rest of them, very nicely laid out. Discusses before the invasion, discusses post-invasion, and generally speaking, because the Protectorate is a newer kingdom, it goes a lot into the current relationships that they have with a lot of the other countries, and their philosophical and religious background, as to how their culture and their society now works. So as you can see, there's a lot of detailed stuff in here. Some amazing artwork in here. Absolutely amazing artwork. We're into the player section, so you can play a Vassal of Menoth, which is an alternate arcane mechanic, Exemplar Errant and Exemplar Avenger, Protectorate Warcaster, and then they've got a ton of new classes. They've got a Legion of the Order of the Fist, we've got an Exemplar, we've got a Paladin of the Order of the Wall, we've got a Reclaimer, and we've got a Scrutiator. We've got new abilities. Oh, a Scrutiator, sorry. A Scrutator? Something like that. There's the word spelt if anyone else wants to give it a go. There's the new abilities. There's a ton of those. New spells, and then some adventuring company ideas, as well as Protectorate armour and gear. So obviously there's a lot of very specific gear to them. And then it talks about Protectorate Steamjacks and Warjacks, specifically their weapon loadouts as well. And then it goes straight from there into the index. Like I said, a nice, very, very quick overview. At some point I probably will do a History of the Iron Kingdom style video, or a history of each of the individual kingdoms, or all of the above. This book, purely for background, it's a joy to read if you're into that sort of thing. The extra stuff it brings to Iron Kingdom's RPG groups, there's not a massive amount, I will say that. I guess that you probably only need one of these amongst all your players, maybe two. I know we've got 3, I think, in our group, but not a lot of stuff's come out of this at the moment, because we've tended to stick to more of the core rules for our first gen. That said, I'm going to be running a campaign soon in Divided Llael, so it'll be interesting to see how that comes out and how much of this book is used during that. The background section obviously very helpful for me for coming up with ideas. So yeah, that was a very, very, very quick look at Kings, Nations and Gods. I've barely scratched the surface, but there you go. That's the book itself. I recommend it to people. It's a very nice book. Again, it's a great expansion on the Iron Kingdom's IP. Yeah, so I'd consider it a worthwhile investment. So that's Scapegoat Stephen with another video done, and I will see you soon.